This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Ayin Beis, and we're holding on the very bottom of Ayin Aleph Amid Beis. We are 2 lines from the bottom, in which the Gemara is trying to figure out Shitas Rabbi Akiva. We finished off saying that Rabbi Akiva has a Shita that only by koli, only by the toasted grain, does his opinion apply. Says the Gemara off of that detail, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Aini, is that true? Vaki asa Ravin. But when Ravin came, Amar Rabbi Yechanan, Mechayev ay Rabbi Akiva af. B'minamer le'oitzer. When you harvested it in patches to store the grain, Rabbi Akiva says is then even when you're harvesting it. How ripe are the items when you harvest it? Obviously fully ripe. So what do we see? We see now like Rabbi Meir. Responds the Gemara, classical teretz. Savala kavasei bechado, poligalei bechado. He holds like him in one din, but he argues like him in another din. Says the Gemara Vaiter. The next part of the Mishnah taught us that before the Omer is brought to the harvest for Netiyai saplings, Beis Evel, or before Beis HaMedrash. Ask the Gemara why. My taima. These are all cases of mitzvahs, and that's the reason why they are allowed. Continues the Gemara of Leas the next line of the Mishnah taught us, you're not allowed to make bundles of sivasim. You leave them untied. My time, because we try to do the least as possible. Mitzvah said the Mishnah. The mitzvah is to bring it Menachos from the standing grain. Tanu Rabbanan learned in a brisa. Vim takr minchas bikurim. Says the Torah, you bring minchas bikurim. Matam lemor is supposed to teach us lefisha mitzvah zaymer lahavi Menachos. The mitzvah is to bring it from the standing crop. Minayin. From where do you know? Shem loimatza Menachos. If you don't have Menachos, then what? Yavi min ha'omarin. Then you could bring it from the cut stuff. Tamalei mar sakriv davarach another Joshua sakriv. Fisha mitzvah lavi min alach umenayin shem lamatzi min alach. And then, by the way, this was the next case in the Mishnah. Yavi min ayavesh tamalei mar sakriv davarach takriv fisha mitzvah likser balayla. The third din in our Mishnah. Minayin shem nikser bayom kosher v'deichas the Shabbos tamalei mar sakriv Kol shehu sakriv mikol makom takriv afilu b'Shabbos takriv afilu b'tama. That avada lechatzchila we try to avoid it as much as possible. I read it a little bit weird. Let's just go back from Menayim shem nikser b'yom kosher tamlei mar sakriv v'deichas Shabbos. How do you know it's deichas Shabbos? Tamlei mar takriv kol shehu takriv mikol makom takriv afilu b'Shabbos takriv afilu b'tama. That lemaisa, if push comes to shove, going to be mutter in all of these cases from the lashon of takriv. Now we quote the next case of the Mishnah that if it was nixar b'yayim, if it was harvested on the day of the 16th, it is kosher. Frakti Gemara, really? Vatanan kol halayla kosher liksiras oimer. The entire night is kosher for the ksir oimer. Ulak techalav eivarment to burn the fats and limbs. Zaklal. Tovar shebin v'asakalayim kosher kalayim. So says the Gemara. So what do we see? The limud is kol halayla is similar to kol hayom. So says the Gemara, Katani layla dami diyayim. The two are put together. Wama diyayim belayla loy. Just like that which the mitzvah is b'yayim. It's an exclusion, belayla not. So too, af balayla, if the mitzvah is balayla b'yayim nami loy. So why does the Mishnah say that if the b'yayim is going to be kosher? Amar Rabba loy kasha, why not? Ha Rabbi Vavaz Rav Shemin, two different shitais. Titanyos, we learned in a brayso. Hayayim edu makir minchas oimer v'nitmeis. Someone is standing and bringing the minchas oimer v'nitmeis and became tamei. What's halacha? If there's more barley, even if it's attached to the ground. Amar Loi, we tell him, Hava acheres, bring something else. Tachtel of him, lav. Amar Loi, havi pikeach v'shoisek. If not, we tell him, be quiet, be smart, and be quiet. And you even allowed to bring it, but Tama, if you have nothing else, Divrei Rav Elazar Rav Shimon. Divrei Rav Elazar, Divrei Rebbe, Rav Elazar Rav Shimon, Omer. Ben kach lo ben kach, either way, Omer lo b'kech v'shosoik. Why? Shekol Omer shenixar shloi sheloi kim mitzvasoi psula. If it's not harvested at the right time, it's not harvested by nacht, then what's the halacha? The halacha is it's going to be pasul. So what do we see from this brisa? The Rebbe and Rav Shimon argue as to whether or not the Omer has to be done by nacht, or whether it's just a preference. And the nafkamina is going to be, what if it's done by day? The case of our Mishnah, there's going to be our sheet of our Mishnah is going to be like Rebbe, that if it's done by day, it's going to be kosher. Continues the Gemara, Amar Rabbi Rachanam Rabbi Yechanan, Rav Elazar Rav Shimon Mishidas Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Shel Aviv Amrav. Rav Shimon is saying in the name of the Rav Elazar's father of Shimon. It's not Klalam Rabbi Akiva. Kol Malach Hashem Shalas says in Me'arav Shabbos. Ein Odeiches as Shabbos a klal with regards to all mitzvahs in the Beis Hamikdash. That if it can be done in Erev Shabbos, then it is Teicha. If it's done in Erev Shabbos, then it is not Teicha Shabbos. And therefore the lechatchila should be done in Erev Shabbos. But that's regular charish and regular katzir. However, macharish rishos, just like plowing is a iser dirabanan, av katzir is going to be a rishos. Meaning that's when it's a rishus, when it's optional, it's going to be aser. However, when it's obligatory, yotzer ksira oimer, that what she mitzvah, and therefore yes, be daiche Shabbos. Vis like nekatzir shleikim mitzvah sekasher, amay dachi Shabbos, nekatzir merev Shabbos, elo with the dachi Shabbos. From there is a raya that if it's going to be nekatzer, if it's harvested not at the right time, either before or after the 16th, it's going to be pasul, and that is where Rav Shimon got his din from. Says the Gemara, 1 second. How could Rebbe argue? Isn't Rebbe also a Talmud of Rav Shimon? V'atanya. Amar Rebbe, they made him tirades of Shimon b'takua. And my little Shema luntes mechotzer likagam likarfif. Acher ad shana magiam lemayan shana roichasin boy. So we see klar the Rebbe, as a Talmud of Rav Shimon, answers the Gemara. You're right, but there's another Rav Shimon. Savala kidach to Rav Shimon. The Tanya Amar Rav Shimon, 2 lines at the bottom. Arei kama chaviva mitzvah b'shaita. Sharei hektar chalav meivarim k'shem kol halayla. V'lo yamamtim le'mad shetechshach. You could do it all night, but they don't wait until that moment. So to by us explains the Gemara. It's better, of course, to burn it by day. You just mutter the ganze Nacht. So Zak to Rebbe, Zak Rav Shimon, it's better to do it earlier, and it's even going to be Deicha Shabbos. So too, you're right. The Omer Batzem could have been harvested before Shabbos, but we're going to allow it to be done on Shabbos. Why? Mitzvah b'shaita. So even though Rebbe is indeed a Talmud of Rav Shimon, the reason he's allowed to do it on Shabbos is because of this other Rav Shimon. We turn over to Amid Beis and says the Gemara. 1 second. Rav Elazar Rav Shimon, Lo Shmielei. Rav Elazar Rav Shimon Lo Shmielei. Did he not hold of this din of Rav Shimon? Of course he did. And even though he held of this din of Rav Shimon, as the Dab Rashi says of Chaviva Mitzvah B'Shaita, still he says that since it could be done before Shabbos, it's not Deicha Shabbos. So even though Chaviv Mitzvah B'Shaita, it's not Deicha Shabbos. Why not? Elashayni asam shrei dachasa shchitas Shabbos. The other case must be different by the mureh, by the fats. Over there, the shechting already was deicha Shabbos. And since this carbon was deicha Shabbos for the shechita, we allow it to continue to be deicha Shabbos to burn the fats in the lips. But by us, so Rav Shimon, it should be done before Shabbos. Well, the Rabbi Yachanami dachsasa shchitas Shabbos. I'll have a Rabbi Ksiras Aimer lo idachia Shabbos. So it must be that Rabbi holds is not deicha Shabbos. So the shaila is, we see that Rebbe does not hold it's the same din as burning the fats and the limbs. Veloi, says Gemara, really? Veloi, Vatanam, but we learned in the Mishnah, Chamayim Echad, Shabbos, Echad Chol, Bol Shabbos and Chol, Mishalosh Hayaba. The Omer is brought from 3 saw, going back a Mishnah or 2. So what do we see? We see clearly it is Deicha Shabbos. That's the like your Rebbe says Gemara. Chachamim Oimrim, Echad Shabbos, Echad Chol, B'shalosh B'shalosh Kupos, B'shalosh Magalos. Says Gemara Nachmal to like your Rebbe. U'B'Shabbos, Yomer them Shabbazu. They say it's Shabbos. They still say still cut it. Says the Gemara, all of these are going to be to like your Rebbe, because Rebbe holds all of this is not done. We continue with, even though there's 2 dots over here, it's really a continuation. Nekatzer b'yom kasher, v'doichas Shabbos. The Mishnah taught us, if it was harvested by day, it's kasher, and it's eicha Shabbos. Man, Shabbos lei, damar nekatzer b'yom kasher, meaning it's a new shtickle, but it's really within the same vein of Shitas Rebbe. Who's the one that says, if it's nekatzer b'yom, it's kasher? Rebbe! V'katani doichas Shabbos. My love. Kitsira. It's now referring to the Ksira. Says Gemara loy la krava. Aval Ksira loy vatanya Rebbe Omer v'daber Moshe Moedei Hashem. Ma tam Omer levishaloi lemanu ela letamid. It's only teaching us for the Tamid and for a Bezach. Why? Because by those two should never been b'moyadoi in the right time. B'moyadoi v'afilu b'Shabbos. B'moyadoi v'afilu b'Tama. Shar karbanos other karbanos at sibur minayin. Tamid loymar eiles asu l'Hashem moedeichem. Minayin the rabbis omer. How do we know to be mar b'do omer? V'hikra v'imoi shtei alechem. How do we know to be mar b'do omer? V'akarev imoi. And that which goes with it says Gemara shtei alechem. V'akarev marem. How do we know to be mar b'do shtei alechem? That which is brought with it. Tamid levi davar Moshe Moedei Hashem. Hakasav kava moyed lekulam lemai. Ilema, so proves the Gemara that what does it mean? That is a special liman akra to make it a moed. Ilim la krava shtei alechem minei akrava ninu. El b'shita letchena v'harkada u'tekavasa, all the different avodas to create the carbon with kavasa gabe omer liksira v'chodachi as a Shabbos. So what do we see? We're back to square one. See, according to Rabbi, it is the Shabbos. Ella omer must be la krava shtei alechem la'afiyah. And therefore, what's the chiddush? Ksav Rabbi Tanur Mikadesh. And therefore, if you baked the breads yesterday, tried to negate the necessity of doing it on Shabbos in the first white line. If Salah Belino, get Kedusha would be possible. Ksav Rabbi Tanur Mikadesh. Really? Does Rabbi really hold that? Says the Gemara, V'hatanya, but we learned in a brayso, and this should sound familiar. We had this 2 weeks ago. Kif se yaser zin mekachin es alechem elu b'shchit. Akeiser shachtel l'shmam zarek dam l'shman. Kadosh alechem shachtel l'shmam zarek dam l'shman. Like kadosh alechem shachtel l'shmam zarek dam l'shman alechem. Kadosh v'enoi kadosh divrei Rabbi. Kadosh shimon ever l'amina kadosh l'shman v'yisek dam l'shman. So says the Gemara, we see according to Rabbi, that where does the Kedusha come? Through the Shechita, not through the Afiyah. Rav Nachman Yitzchak Hokvo v'loi Hokvu Ka'amar. Says Rav Nachman Yitzchak Rabbi Avada holds that the Afiyah, the baking of the bread, is when it gets the Kedusha. What does the Brisa mean? The Brisa means Hokvu, that the Shelachim are established or not established, meaning do they get the shame of the carbon with the Kivsei Aseres? But it doesn't mean it gets the Kedusha, as the Kedusha comes dafka through the Afiyah. And with that, we dive into The next parak, the 7th parak, and we start to learn about the Heilig Hadron Allah Rabbi Yishmael. Definitely need a Hadron. And now we dive into the Kemitza. Says the Mishnah. The following menachos have din of kemitza, and the remnants go to the Kohanim. Menachos asoiles, the fine flour. V'amachbas, as we've seen in our Mecheshes. V'hachalois, and the chal of kikim and the wafers. Minchas akom, minchas noshim, minchas oimer, minchas choyti, minchas kenois. Shemin oimer, minchas choyti shel Kohanim, nikmetzes v'koimetz karav la'atzmoi, shirayim kravim la'atzmon. So says the Mishnah concludes that according to Rav Shimon, the minchas choyti is different. Why? There is a din of kemitza, but the kemitza is brought on the mizbeach by itself, and the shirayim are brought by themselves, not together. Stop over here. We'll pick it up from the Gemara the next year. B'siyata d'ishmaya.